What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the No Starving Artists podcast. We are now in season 2. Hopefully, you've watched all the episodes leading up to this one. If you haven't, be sure to go back and check those out. As always, you can find all the stuff around No Starving Artists at www.nsadance.com. But today, we have a really cool guest, somebody that I have talked to a couple times now. Really excited to talk to a third time. And I think it's going to be a lot of really valuable information for a lot of people that follow me, because I get questions about collegiate dance and that whole realm of dance quite often. So I think there's going to be a lot of value in this one. But I would love to introduce Preston Miller to the audience. Preston, go ahead and give them a little bit of a rundown of who you are and where you're at right now.
Hey, yeah, man. Thank you. I'm pumped to be here as well. I am a dance coach, choreographer, just a dude that loves dance. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to have built a life where I feel like my life is made of dance. I was a hip hop kid, fell in love with hip hop after MC Hammer, Elvis, third grade. Hip hop comes in, joined the hip hop company, sixth grade. I'm homeschooled. So dance is like helping me get my social stuff, and it's helping me get my athleticism, my PE. Go to a performing arts high school, tell my parents I want to be a backup dancer for Janet Jackson. I'm all of like 130 pounds, pure muscle. And tell my parents I want to be a backup dancer for Janet Jackson. They send me to the performing arts high school thinking I'm going to quit because there's no hip hop. I fall in love with ballet, modern, jazz, contemporary, this concert dance world. Still a beast at hip hop, still doing that thing. It becomes point, do you go to LA and pursue the Janet Jackson thing, or do you go to college? Well, I didn't want to go to college. My parents tricked me into going to college, went to college for dance, went to Ailey Fordham, got my degree there. But this is where this story really starts to get interesting to me. I went to Ailey thinking I wanted to be a dancer for Ailey. And after like 3 weeks there, I was like, man, I don't want to be a dancer for Ailey. What do I want to do with my life? I love dance. What do I want to do? And just kept spend some time just dancing, just loving all these different art forms, and decided I wanted to make movies and bring dancers together from different genres and different techniques and different styles. And that led to coaching dancers of all different styles at a really high level, and seeing all these just elite athletes that are just phenomenal at what they do as adults, 23, 24, then 30, then 49. And these people who have lived these amazing lives in dance. And I spent 20 years doing that. And now as a mid 30-year-old, I find myself running the Dance Artist Prep, which is also TDA Prep. We are a school, a platform, not just for kids, but for adults and professionals as well, who are living a life with dance. We take all this expertise that we've gathered throughout the years, and we help people essentially build their lives. If they're missing, sometimes you need technique that's going to help you have a sustainable career because you just can't dance yet. We help you learn how to dance at that level. If you have all those pieces together, but you're missing like the understanding how the politics of the industry work, how to be in certain spaces that align with your spirit so that you can be there long term with a high quality of life, we give you that. If you just need a champion in your corner, somebody who knows you, who can vouch for you, who can say who you are and who you aren't in certain spaces, we give you the platform to be able to have that. So now we have a place that helps people build their life with dance. And that's what we're doing now. I love it, man.
Yeah, it's incredible. I'm really curious to around TDA Prep and just how you kind of like happened upon it, how you developed it. I think it's a really daunting idea for a lot of like choreographers or dancers, including myself. This idea of like creating something, creating a whether it's a platform or whether it's like a physical space where, what kind of things did you run into in the beginning of it? Was it just easy to get everything going? Did it naturally kind of develop, or was there some setbacks in the beginning that kind of maybe even made you question if you wanted to keep doing it at all?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I've been reflecting on it a lot because I feel like now we're at a place of going to whatever the next level is. Like it's a moment to reflect. It's a great question. It all kind of started naturally. Like it's very much alignment and solving different problems, right? So like there's a moment in my career where I'm going around from ballet company to some sports teams to movie sets, and I'm coaching, like kind of like a hired assassin, right? Like I'm coming in for 3 days,
Yeah.
boom, I can
Yeah.
coach your Swan Lake, boom, I can coach your tour if you need a fresh up, right? Like I can coach you just on some athletic stuff about balancing your hips so that you can run and throw people off routes 3 days in, 3 days out. And in
Mm.
between there, I would also be working with parents and working with dancers, going to the studio, doing the thing. Like I can coach this master class, I can do this thing.
Yeah.
And I would meet kids that were exceptional kids and had exceptional parents who were doing whatever they could to try to figure it out. And I think the
Right.
biggest problem at that point was I'm going into these studios and I have the information that everybody around the studio is trying to pretend like they have. Like I just came from San Francisco Ballet, and
Mm.
you're the owner of this studio is telling you something that's not accurate or not the whole story. And
Wow.
number one, I don't really have the trust of the parent or the dancer, and I don't know why. I have it, but not as much as the studio owner. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And then number two, the studio owner doesn't want me around second guessing them, undercutting what they're saying for too long. So these problems started to
Right.
develop. I would maintain the relationships, but I needed something that could essentially build those relationships and really create, not just on the side of like I need them to trust me, but I need to provide them consistency too. I need them to know that I'm going to be here, and if I'm not going to be there, somebody that has access to me and is close to me and is trained by me is going to be there, and we're going to be able to check the
Right.
box. And then you start to build these relationships that you look for. So it was all kind of one step at a time, just trying to answer the problems that I was noticing about being a hired hand.
Interesting. And would you say that you're at this point, are you supplementing dancers that already have, a full air quotes dance schedule? Are these kids that are, in studios? Do you also work with kids just exclusively?
So I'd say 95% of our students, it's supplemental. And that's what I tell families. We are not your main thing.
Yeah.
We're going to feel like your main thing because we care about you as the human, right? Like we're here to make sure that like your kid has what they need to build a life in this. And so it's not just about the class or thing. It's much bigger than that. So we're going to feel like your main thing. But when it comes to athletic training, you got to have training 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day. You
Mm-hmm.
got to start to build the habit of loving being in the studio and loving doing the work. And so that's got to happen at a place. That's how we look at it. You got to have a studio. Sometimes
Yeah.
your studio is all encompassing and there's not a lot of room for us to be a part of that team. Sometimes the
Right.
studio just does classes, right? So, but then every once in a while you meet a dancer who has enough pieces where we can be the main thing. Like they live in New York City, they're homeschooled, they can go take pickup classes at Steps and Gibney and these places, these places that have classes, and then we can make their
Yep.
schedule for them. But we're still not doing the majority of the training. We're really doing
Gotcha.
our platform is Monday through Thursday online virtual coaching with ballet, Horton, Graham, jazz, contemporary, one of those styles, and then Monday we have a technique awareness class, and
Oh,
we
wow.
teach one of those classes. We teach the technique
Mm-hmm.
awareness class, and then we bring in like our Graham class is taught by principal dancers from Graham, rotating monthly. Our jazz class is taught by some of the best jazz instructors from the competition circuit, from Broadway, from just the whole rotating monthly. The ballet teachers. Last month's ballet teacher was the artistic director of ABT's second company. Like
Jeez.
crazy access that I wish I had as a kid.
Yeah.
We're now able
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
like provide that Monday through Thursday, and then we do in-person weekends. But most of the platform is virtual and just about mentorship and coaching and making sure that they have the information they need.
It's amazing. I'm curious what you mentioned in the beginning. There was some of these kind of interactions with studios that maybe weren't ideal. Do you still run into that now?
Mm.
What's the response been from studios that these dancers are at? Are they, for the most part, open to them working with you and accepting of it, or do you still kind of experience that pushback a little bit?
It's mixed. We haven't experienced the pushback, I think, because there's a boundary now where if you don't bang with us, you don't reach out to us. That's just kind of what it is. Like
Mm,
you try to keep your dancers
that makes sense.
away. You know,
Yeah.
we don't see you anymore. But like the studios that
Yeah.
like us, every once in a while we do these things called evaluations where a dancer just cold, maybe you've never been to one of our parent workshops, you've never been to anything. You just hit our website. You're like, I want to be evaluated by y'all. I love y'all. I want to experience. I want you to tell me where I am in my journey. We'll log in. We'll see you. We'll do that thing. And they'll be in the studio. The owner of the studio will be sitting in the back with the parents, and they'll all be taking notes. And we love that. We love
Yeah.
that. So, because that means that
Yeah.
this is the person that you're going to spend the majority of your time with. They care and they're open,
Right.
and we're not claiming to have all the answers. So it's nice to see the studio owners that we are able to meet now. I feel like we're attracting the ones that like really do want to provide more, but they don't know
Yeah.
how, or they don't, they're just looking for options, and we're an option.
That makes a lot of sense. And there definitely are areas I become more privy to it the more interactions I have with people. There's so many areas in the US where they just don't have access, whether it's a small town or
Mm,
whether it's, a rural area. They just don't have the resources.
yeah.
And I think that's where like the online stuff really is a cool thing.
Yeah. Shout out
I want
COVID.
to slightly, yeah, COVID for sure. Yeah. I want to pivot a little tiny bit because I know you do a lot of work with college dance programs
Oh yeah.
and dancers preparing for college, and I've been seeing a lot of your posts recently, which I really really enjoy.
Yeah.
And I know that I have definitely I would really consider myself a viewer of collegiate dance. I'm not really involved, but I watch it, and even just from that perspective, I have seen a big shift over the past 5 years of just collegiate dance mirroring the industry a little bit more
Yeah.
and just a little bit more overlap between the two. And you're also seeing this with like more and more schools, including, whatever their specific term is for it, but industry catered programs.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious just what you're seeing and what the depth of what your kind of experience has been with it. Um,
Oh yeah.
are you seeing similar things? Are you seeing even more than what maybe the average viewer is seeing in terms of where collegiate dance is heading?
It's crazy, man. And I want to be clear because there's two different audiences, right? And I think that, to your point, those audiences are merging, right? But the terms, I just want to make sure that everybody that's listening is we're all talking about the same thing. Collegiate dance. We're talking about competitions. We're talking about concert dance. We're talking about dancing at the college level, whether that's Juilliard or whether that's University of Minnesota, right? Like,
Right.
and they all lead to different places, though. I think what's interesting, and we have a college program where we work with seniors in high school every year, every step of the way. So every year we get to see what's updated, what's not updated from FAFSA, the
Yeah.
grassroots
Yeah.
of FAFSA. We're looking at all the way to how colleges negotiate scholarships, right? So
Yeah.
every step of the way. And there's a couple of things that stand out that are interesting. First, from the audience, from like the clients that come to us, there are a lot more students that are coming wanting a high impact program like ours that are also pursuing something like an Ohio State or something like
Hmm.
LSU.
Yeah.
That didn't used to be the case. They used to only come for like, I want to go to USC, I want to go to Fordham, I want to go to Boca, Juilliard, like that used to be just for them. Now it's much broader.
Yeah.
But this is what's really crazy. Do you know right now it costs more money? This is a hot take right here. Right now, it costs more money to go to NYU for dance than it does to go to NYU for engineering. And that's
Holy cow.
crazy. When you see what
That is crazy.
the percentage of people that are getting, no shade to NYU because they have a new director over there who I'm a big fan of. This is your first year. Shout out to you. I'm not trying to make things harder for you, but these are the real problems that we have to address. And the fact that when you look at how the percentage of the class and what their jobs that they're receiving and what they pay, and I'm not talking about the one or two that get a job on Broadway. I'm talking about like the vast majority of the
Yeah.
classes that
Yeah.
don't book jobs that pay $80,000 a year, and it costs 90,000 plus a year to go to school for dance at these colleges.
Yeah.
And I think Ohio State, LSU, these state schools that are starting to get that had competition programs that maybe these kids aren't going to go into professional dance, or maybe they'll dance on cruise ships for 5 years and then quit, or pivot to something else. But kids that
For
want to
sure.
dance for 20 years, 30 years, Ohio State looks a lot more appealing now. These state schools look a lot more appealing, and
Yeah.
they're getting real
Yeah.
training. They're getting real instruction, and they're building these infrastructures that can actually create long careers, not just for the one or two oddballs, but for the masses, like the majority of the kids that come to the program. If you want to dance, we are
Yeah.
that serious here. There's a lot of problems in the collegiate dance space that I think we're starting to come to a head with, and the biggest is financial.
It's interesting that you bring that up because I think this has always been an issue with dance, particularly is
Mm.
the see if I can word this correctly out of my brain. Like the before you start a career has always grown at a rate that doesn't match the after the fact. Meaning we see this happen a lot where studios get more expensive,
Mm-hmm.
where competitions get more expensive, conventions get more expensive, and now, like you're pointing out, universities get more expensive, but it's not tracking with the success that you can actually see after the fact,
Mm-hmm.
which is a really, really weird dynamic because there's a lot of money in dance, but it's money spent prior to those dancers reaching an age where they can actually go out and have a career.
Mm-hmm.
If hopefully that makes
Oh
sense.
yeah. Oh yeah. You're
So
you're front loading it.
it's just very, very weird.
Yeah. It's a weird, especially as a teacher, right? Like you
Yeah.
you see how much parents are spending, not just with you,
Right.
but with all their community that they have to put around their kid. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
dog, I know how long it took for me to make the amount of money where that was sustainable. I know how long it took for my wife to get. It takes a while before you get paid a lot of money for posting on social media, or before you get,
Yeah.
consistently. It takes time, and that most people don't
Yeah.
make it to that spot. It's a weird.
No. No.
It's weird. You hit it on the head.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that. Yeah. That's the best. I mean, it's really the best word. It's weird.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. It's strange. And like you're even seeing. I don't know if you've been following any of the like what has transpired with Break the Floor recently, but
Not recently.
that to me is a really big indicator of where dance is heading. So essentially, a private equity firm. Um, this is the first time this has ever happened. A private equity firm purchased Break the Floor and all of its subsidiary competitions and
That's
conventions.
like Jump. That's
And
like Radix.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I think it was 17 total assets,
Wow.
and they put them into one umbrella company, basically. And it's just really the first word that comes to my head is alarming because, you know, it's one thing for dance to be big. It's another thing once private money starts to get involved,
Mm-hmm.
because now that means that, the really deep pockets are starting to see how much value and money there is in dance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think again, it almost accentuates this issue that we're talking about, where we're not really creating more high paying dance jobs, but we're making it more difficult, and we're making the processes just strange.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weird things happening with dance, but there's also really amazing things. And I saw your posts about this as well. The the difference between Minnesota and Ohio State, and kind of the conversations that are sparking out
Oh,
of
I've been
that
on one.
is really, really interesting to me as well. So I'd love to hear, like, I don't know, what are your thoughts in kind of more of a long form fashion of like what you saw transpire over the past couple of weeks.
I've been on one, man. That was exciting. That
It was.
And I love sports, bro. Like
Yeah.
it's championship weekend. Like it's AFC, NFC championships. I'll be rocking my Lamar Jackson jersey on Sunday at 3 p.m. Like I'm that guy. And what I love about sports is I love that there's a winner and a loser, and the accountability that has
Yeah.
to be held the following morning. You're going to see a guy
Mhm.
talking about how good or bad you were in real life. There's going to be a slow-mo video that's playing while he's talking his smack, right? Like there's no way out of it. You either did it or you didn't do it. And I work in an
Yeah.
industry where, I'm gonna put my clients on blast. Every one of these 20, 21-year-old clients, I tell them this to their face too, so I have no problem with it. But they always come back from these auditions that they didn't get, and maybe it wasn't for them, and that's really ultimately
Yeah.
what it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't for them, but they always come back with a reason why. It's always like, well, I didn't get it
Mm.
because I noticed the only people that
Yeah.
they kept had a mole right here, and I don't have a mole right here. Like in this, what are you doing? Like, even if that is true, how
Uh,
does that serve you and your existence on this planet to come up with
yeah.
to look for the reason why, to be really good at that? Like,
Right.
that's really weird energy for me. And so, like, to see what an art form, and I think some caveat, I come from now the concert dance space. I gotta, like, I love the commercial world. I used to work in that space, but I'm a concert. They've adopted me. I am now that. And
Yeah.
the concert dance world can't stand the competition. We're like, but they love it. They love it, but they hate it. It's like jealousy is hate and love at the same
Yeah.
time, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
I'm looking at this thing and I'm already conditioned to look at it and not like it. I know that. And so I'm looking at it
Yeah.
and I'm like, but
Yeah.
wait, they're treating this really like sport. Like, the only thing that they didn't do that I wish they would have done is like Ohio State, Minnesota is this kind of unsaid thing. I'm saying it
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
everybody else is saying it, but like, it's not like they had this like, all right, and here are our final two. Now they still did this like kumbaya thing where it was like a top five and then the winner. And it's like, doggone well
Right.
that you're looking at three schools. You're looking at LSU, you're looking at Ohio State, you're looking at Minnesota. Let's just rank them. Let's
Yeah.
just do it.
Yeah.
Let's just lean all the way in. But outside of that, man, I think it was entertaining AF. And I
Hmm.
get so caught up, and I think the concert dance world gets so caught up in like, well, where's this gonna go, and how well is it gonna do? What is this gonna lead to in their lives? If it doesn't lead to a career in dance, then it's a waste of time. And I think that's a mountain that people get stuck on. This is the first year where I've had a dancer. I have a student who's at Ohio State. I have a student there who's on the
Yeah.
team,
Yeah.
crushing it. She's like one of the new faces of the team, and it's really cool to just see. I had conversations with her about like, you don't want to go to Juilliard, you don't want to go to, like, the world is yours, like, you don't want to do this. And she was so confident in who she was, and I really challenged these kids, like, to make sure they're not punking out on themselves and on their dreams. And I challenged her. We got some alone time, and I really was like, yo, are you being a punk right now? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
laid it out for me, and I'm watching her live that. And
Mm.
I think there's something about it that if I get off my high horse about, are you going to have a career in this? Are you going to, maybe she will, maybe she won't, but she's going to be proud of who she was and how she spent that time. And
Yeah.
I can't pretend like that's not more valuable. It is. Who knows what she's going to do? I don't even know. Like, who knows? But she's doing it today. She's
Yeah.
she's charging her path. And I think there's a pathway now for a lot of these kids that go to these competitions that didn't have a path before.
Yeah.
I think now there's a path for them to like keep going, keep seeing where you can take this thing.
I like that kind of idea of like there's a new pathway that's like being developed, I think, as we're seeing it unfold. And I know like in my spaces, a lot of these like comp kids that I'm dealing with, they're like obsessed with it. Like they're like they almost idolize these teams in a sense. And I think it's
Mm.
I do think it's cool. I think it's giving dancers specifically uh a little bit more value when it comes to college, because I think a lot of people just are unsure about college to begin with, and that kind of gives them a little bit more of an answer and like something they can really work towards,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is a good thing. But yeah, it's interesting, and I mean they're I mean they're not kids, but I guess most of them are quite young compared to you and and it's I mean they're doing incredible things. They're
Oh
doing
yeah.
like wild things. And to
Oh
your
yeah.
point, like they may not be things that I'm like a super big fan of, but to say that they're not doing like incredible feats on these stages would be just not accurate.
Yeah.
So it's really really interesting to just see it all kind of unfold and see like I'm seeing like reaction clips on TikTok of like people like commentary over like these performances, and it's like it's really kind of taking on a whole different thing that
Oh
I
dude.
don't think was there before.
I had a thought. I was like, man, I gotta call Jason. We gotta just watch these live.
Yeah,
We gotta just watch these live.
I was gonna say because I had some people asking me my opinion, and I was like, I mean, I'm more than happy to give it, but I thought the same thing. I was like, man, we really need to do it like together.
Straight up like Shannon Sharp, Chad Johnson. End of
Yeah,
the day,
yeah,
like the
yeah,
nightcap, YouTube, like we gotta watch these, and because it's that good. There's so much to comment on.
yeah.
And then like, okay, but then this is a real talk. This is something that we got to address. So I sent a text message to the kid's mom. And this kid, I've known her for a while. Her mom has been advocating for her for a while. She's been supporting her dance dreams. And so she goes to
Hmm.
Ohio State. I text the kid's mom. As soon as I find out, I'm like, really? Travis Wall? Travis Wall? Ohio State brings in
Yeah,
Travis Wall?
yeah, yeah,
What? So, okay, they won. They had an amazing piece.
yeah.
I'm going to talk about it like it's a sport. I think I'm Team Ohio State or I'm Team LSU.
I
Minnesota
am
didn't
too.
really do it for me,
Yep,
but
same.
Minnesota choreographed their own piece.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
You know what I'm
Interesting.
saying? Like
Yeah,
you go
yeah,
from having this
yeah,
guy who, right, wrong, or otherwise, did some stuff.
yeah,
Like you go
yeah,
from this guy.
yeah, yeah,
Should he work in dance? I'm not to judge that. Should he work around kids?
yeah,
Not mine. Not mine.
yeah,
So
yeah,
like, okay, we're gonna do Ohio State and Minnesota. I got to give some extra points to the fact that they didn't have to bring in R. Kelly. And that's how I roll.
yeah.
Like,
100%.
yes,
A
they
hundred
didn't.
percent.
I
Yeah,
give
this
props.
is I posted about this on my story, and I had some people. For the most part, people were really in agreement, and I had a couple people like give some in a really good way, give some just different perspective, and a lot of people are just talking about like second chances and things like this, and
Mm-hmm.
I I don't think that there's not a second chance to be had. I think my issue with the whole situation is there was zero accountability from the jump. There was no sort of like there was no statement. There was no. I mean, you didn't even give us like a PR
No.
like formulated statement. You gave us nothing.
Nope.
And to me, that's where kind of my issue lies. And I totally understand that, like, my wife pushed back on this as well with me. She's like, do you really think like the school itself is like looking into people? And I was like, no, you're probably right. But like at the same time, like people knew, like
The
people
director knew.
knew. And I think like the other argument I was giving people is like these kids are incredible. These are not like a comp studio in Iowa. Like this is like
Yep.
these are really great kids from all over the US.
Yep.
They didn't need him to win. And that's I think where my I was more so frustrated is
Yeah.
because like it didn't need to be that way. So it almost makes it feel more intentional in a
Oh yeah.
sense.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's like I don't know. I don't and I tried to explain this to people too. Like it in no way takes away anything that the dancers did. I don't think it's the dancers' fault.
Nope.
Um, but I think like somebody dropped the ball there and somebody made a decision that just didn't need to be made.
Yeah. I think that's at the end of the day. I think that's the best way of saying it. It didn't need to be made, and now we have to talk about it. Now it's not just about how great the team did. It's about this
Yeah.
thing that like it's a big deal, and I've heard it. I've heard it from the dancers. I've heard it. They love this guy. They built great relationships with this guy, and I've never, this guy is he's really good at being in the room. Like there's never been a question about that. He's really good at being in the room. It's
Yeah.
not about that.
Yeah.
I just hate
For
that
sure.
our industry makes you, and not just our industry, but like our industry involves young people. And so it's a little different than like Carl Malone had a similar situation, like it's a little
Yeah.
different than that
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is like our industry makes you really, in the entertainment industry, it makes you really question your human morals and ethic versus talent.
For
And
sure. For
as
sure.
a person who's talented, I'm talented AF. Like I'm a talented dude. I know talent when I see it. I coach talent. I got it. I get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Sure, that's the industry we're in. Is talent, baby. So like I'm not gonna be. There is no talent worth that for me. And that's just,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
kind of where the line is. And it's sad to me that I think that I hope next year they don't do it. I just hope they don't do it next year. They don't need it. They got
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. I mean, they don't need it. It wasn't necessary. And again, I think it's just like it's hard for me to even have the conversation around a second chance I don't even. I mean, you didn't even offer
Nah.
your side. You didn't even attempt to make amends openly. And unfortunately, when you're in an open position like he was, I mean, it's part of the gig, you know?
Yep.
Like I want you to also do things behind closed doors. You should do those things, but it's also kind of part of the gig that you gotta make it apparent that you did that work.
Yep.
Because otherwise we then get the opportunity to sit here and have this conversation because we don't know what work you did or didn't do.
Yep. We can't even talk about
So
it.
I
Like
mean,
people are gonna have their opinion regardless. Like
yeah,
before any of these people got caught doing what they were doing, they had opinions about other people too. And now,
yeah,
now that we
yeah,
got caught, we understand empathy in a different way. And sure, okay, I get it, great, but like not judging anybody. These are just things that we're gonna analyze to decide if we align with them or not. And
100%.
that's just
Yeah,
real. And you didn't give us
yeah,
anything to work with, which is in turn giving us something, right? So
yeah, 100%,
so that's kind of where it is. But
100%. Yeah,
I get it. I don't think that should be the main story around this. And I do get it. People that work people that work and are influenced by that. It's not just the competition world. Unfortunately, it's the concert dance world too.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I went to Ailey at a time where I'm the guy who was tagged in the TikTok that got the last guy fired. Like it's a crazy time that we're living in. But
Yeah,
I think
yeah, yeah,
we got to put our human alignment first and figure it
for
out.
sure. Yeah,
That being said, though,
and we
Ohio
have to
State,
put we
you did it. You did
yeah,
do it.
they did it 100%. Yeah, yeah. No, and I think like we have to have these conversations, and we have to like there has to be opinions on the matter. Otherwise, it just continues to happen. Because I had a lot of people, I get people that will be like, I think it's so cool that you're like willing to speak against like the dance industry, and it's like I'm not speaking against anyone. It's
No,
just like, yeah, like that's what we all should be doing. Like there's like, you know what I mean? It's like
healthy
I don't
discourse.
know. It's this weird sort of. It's a miniature Hollywood. It really
Yeah,
is. Like the dance industry is it's in a lot of aspects the same way. There's a lot of the same issues. There's a lot of the same um, problems, and I think the solution starts to be shown with just conversations like this and people sharing opinions and having open dialogue. Because
yeah.
if we're afraid to do that, then we can't expect anybody to stand up and like have autonomy over their body if we're not even confident enough to have the conversations about it.
That's just real. That's just real. And we can't even become
Yeah.
better coaches. I think like there was I remember my first rehearsal in New York City was with this choreographer who was the bee's knees. He was like, the best in the bubble that I was in. When you go to colleges, there are
Yeah.
different bubbles. The bubble that I was in, he was the top dog of that bubble. And I went to a pretty big college, it was a pretty big bubble. And so
Yeah.
we were all like trying to impress this dude and be in his pieces and that thing. My first rehearsal was my first college rehearsal. I'm in there with him. I'm a freshman. Everybody else is a junior, senior. And he's standing on a chair screaming at the top of his lungs to the dancer that I'm partnering with. I'm like skinny 140 at this time, partnering with the dancer who's probably like 120, and she can dance. She
Yeah.
can dance her face off. She's just like 6 feet. But she can dance her face
Yeah.
off. And I'm trying to control her, and like she's trying to be flailing, and I'm supposed to like be partnering her across the room, and he's yelling at the top of his lungs, "You're never gonna be a dancer. You're never gonna be a dancer." And it was just like abuse. And she was already a professional dancer. She was already
Yeah.
an A-League too. Just abuse, abuse,
Yeah.
abuse.
Yeah.
But then at the same, and I hated it. I hated it. I remember questioning, why are people enjoying this? Why is this blah, blah, blah? And I hated it. And
Yeah.
I promised to myself to not, that's what TDA Prep is the opposite of, right? Inspiration. But I can't deny that when I got on stage to perform his piece, it was going up at the Apollo. And that was like, if you're a
Mm.
student who's dancing at the
Yeah.
Apollo with Ailey, then you're in that group. Like these are the special kids.
Yeah.
Rihanna just
Yeah.
introduced us. She walked back to her seat. She's sitting in the front row. I'm looking. There's a moment where I'm on stage and I'm so anxious out of the, just the volume of the moment. And I remember
Right.
tapping into this visceral anger that I developed throughout rehearsal that made me so good, so good, and just precise
Mm.
and on my steps and not overwhelmed by the moment anymore. And he did that. And all
Yeah.
of that, all
Yeah.
that negativity also created some positive things. And we got to be able to talk about it so that we can really be better, or else
For sure.
we're missing. Everybody has something to offer. It's not just
Yeah. Yeah.
even Travis Wall, like that. But we got to talk about it. We can't just sweep it under the rug and pretend like it didn't happen
Yeah.
because he choreographed a
Yeah.
good piece.
Yeah.
Like, get the fuck out of here. Come on now. Come
Yeah.
on.
100%. 100%. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I love it though. I love what's happening.
Um,
It's a venue, and even bigger picture, Jason,
yeah.
dog. Like,
Yeah.
the more Ohio State and Minnesota create a platform like this where we can see it as sport, engage with it as
Yeah.
sport, and talk about it like sport, the ballet industry, the concert dance world, they're not going to be able to hide behind elitism anymore, because these are the
Mm.
people that go buy tickets, and I get to talk about it. I get to, these dancers at Ohio State look like grown women. They look like who you're watching when you go pay a ticket to go see
Yeah.
Alvin Ailey, or New York
Yeah.
City
Yeah.
Ballet. These are the same. We're not watching little kid bodies anymore. So I'm not used to talking. There's no separation anymore. So if I talk
Yeah.
about them and critique them all over TikTok and get so precise and slow mo, and if we're gonna have these conversations about choreographers, it's just gonna translate into
Yeah.
commercial
Yeah.
spaces, concert spaces at a professional level, because it's already doing it at an adult level, and it's dope, man. I just love it.
It's a really good point. Yeah. It's a really good point. And I think this is the closest I've always struggled with the, art versus sport aspect of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always struggled with seeing, because you hear these dancers that are like, oh, one day dance will be like football or it'll be like this. And I've always struggled with seeing that, that sight. I just
Mm-hmm.
didn't really see how it was possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this development in like these collegiate dance teams, I think is giving me like, I'm kind of starting to see that a little bit more. Like I'm like, okay, I could see how this gets to a point now where the regular person is interested,
Oh yeah.
because that's where I was always at before. Is like the reason sports works is because it's digestible. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have to be a soccer player to understand the rules and to understand like when somebody scores a goal, I should be excited.
Mm-hmm.
But with dance, the hard part is like if I don't know what to look for, I have no way to root because I don't know what's good and what's not good.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of weird how it's happening where I'm seeing more and more like I was seeing people on my Facebook and on my Instagram that don't dance, have never danced, sharing these videos
Hello.
and like talking about how amazing they were, and I was starting to I'm like, okay, I can kind of see this. Like I could see this taking a main stage at some point where like these are televised
Oh
events that
yeah.
like people are tuning into, and they have their favorites, and like I could see that being something someday.
Oh man, I hope so, because I love it. I just got into college football. I'm a big pro sports guy, but college sports I didn't get into
Mhm.
until they had to pay them for me, and so now they're paying them, and I'm like
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
into it. So, and Deion
Yeah.
Sanders is helping a lot too. He's making it fun to
Hmm.
watch. So,
Yeah.
and I'm bred into Michigan. Like that's where my family's from. Michigan, U
Yeah.
of M. They all went to U of M. So Big Ten, I'm
Yeah.
learning all about college football. They won the championship this year, and so I followed them throughout the year. Our school administrator like bleeds maize and blue,
Yeah.
and so we I'm this year. I don't know if you paid attention, but the college football playoff. This is the last year they're going to be. I think it's 4 teams. They only do the top four, and with such a small pool,
Yes.
big
Yes.
controversy, right? Florida State
Hmm.
undefeated,
Hmm.
Alabama not undefeated. Who gets picked? And it's all so like now I can contribute in the barbershop talk. Like now I have an opinion. Now I can this
Yeah.
discourse back
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
forth.
Yeah.
It's so it's not even about like, do you agree? Do you disagree? It's like, is there a platform where you can debate? And
Yeah.
now we have it.
Ah.
Now we have it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Before, like,
Well, and see, I think it needs to be more frequent now.
yes,
Is what they need to start
not
doing.
once
They
a
need to
year.
start turning up the frequency a little bit.
Yeah. They need regionals. They need like Ohio State needs
Yeah.
to go up to
Yeah.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
Minnesota needs to go up to Ohio State. There needs to be an away game.
Yeah. And here's the thing that I do if I'm Ohio State, you guys can hire me if you'd like. If I'm Ohio State, I now start producing content around prep for next year.
Hello. Yeah.
And it's everywhere. It's on YouTube, it's on TikTok. Like I'm showing like I've never understood why people in dance spaces don't do things like this, but like I'm now showing all these kids that are now
Yeah.
fans like this is what we're doing. These are the trainings. Here's the team members. Let's pick some hero team members and let's build like a pseudo series
Yeah.
off of preparing for nationals. And I think that's the key to capitalizing on this growth even further is like these teams have to start like they have to start creating fans, and they
Yeah.
have to start creating those like those favorite
Yeah.
players, who do you root for? Who are you looking out for? And I think like we saw a glimpse of that with the I think it was just Cheer on
Yep.
Netflix. I think that's what it was
Yep.
called. We saw a huge glimpse of that with that show of like what this could look
Yep.
like if we actually start treating it like we do with everything else.
Well, wait, this is the backstory I didn't know. So the coach from Ohio State and Minnesota used to be best friends. And I'm probably going to butcher this because I've heard this third story, but hopefully they see this clip and they fill it in and then we can get the whole story, right? But they used to be best friends. Somewhere along the way, there was a rift. And one of the coaches from one of the teams fully doesn't speak to the other coach from the other team anymore. And they go back and forth every year. They've been doing this for like 30, 40 years.
Jeez.
It's some years it's Ohio State, some years it's Minnesota, but they're the same story that exists on Cheer, but it sounds like a little even more nuanced. Like there's a real, and I get it, these are people's lives, like this is your life, but like also this all adds to why people are loyal to you and what you do and how you carry yourself, because there is an 100%. Art element to this of like what are your ethics? Who are you? And I think the conversation, all of it is very interesting. I am here for it. I'm here for it. ESPN2 in like 10 years. I hope. I'm here for it, man. They changed the game. Shout out to those kids because they're writing history right
now. Agreed. As we kind of like taper down here, I would love to know what are at the current moment. I'm a dancer. I'm looking at like taking that next step after studio. What are some things that I can really make sure that I'm preparing for, that I'm making sure that I have dialed in? Are there any specific things that you're seeing that are like making a difference to kids making it and not?
Yeah. Like we can go real deep on this where it's going to go over a couple people's heads. Let's do that. And then, we'll pull it back a little bit. But I think like, the real deep thing is that it's about awareness. We have this thing that we call technique. You got to know your technique. You got to know your technique. And we've been talking about sports so much. In the sports world, you learn a technique, sort of throw a football, 90-degree angle. You lead with your hip, spine, shoulder, elbow, wrist, right? Like it's a clear, we can put a slow-mo camera in front of it and say, you did do that, you did not do that. It's clear, right?
Right.
Dance technique, there is a clear technique for it, right? But I can tell you confidently, I went to the best high school for boys that want to be concert dancers in the country. I went to one of the best colleges for dance in the country. I've sent dancers to the best ballet school in the world. These are all objective things, but hey, holla at your boy. I've coached some of the best ballerinas in the world, and the technique ain't clear. No one taught it to me, and I was at these places. They would say things that were technical, but there wasn't a 1, 2, 3, right? And so like
Yeah. Yeah.
what effect that has between those that make it and don't make it is the level of awareness that that brings. There are dancers that walk in the studio that have no idea that they're not aware. They have no idea that they don't even expect this note. They're so used to just getting notes that aren't technical or that aren't rooted in something that they can take with them to every single room. It's like I have to change my elbows for this teacher. I have to do this for this teacher. This
Yeah.
teacher likes this. And so when they go in these rooms, they're not really listening in this place of like absorbing. They're listening just to get through the class. And that
Right.
develops an awareness that I think the ones that make it after they leave, they have found a way to connect what they're doing to who they are in their life. And it's not just like I'm going to do
Mm.
this for this teacher. I'm going to do this because I've developed my standard of how I do things. And if they do have a teacher who's able to teach them a technique, then they can grasp onto that. And if they don't, they can still develop their own version of at least a technique for how they do everything. It's their standard, it's their way.
Interesting.
But
Yeah.
most dancers,
Yeah.
they think that like if I just go take the classes, if I follow all the schedules that everybody makes for me, and if I do what this teacher wants and then what this teacher wants and what this teacher wants, I'll make it. And so that's the deep thing of like, what's your level of awareness when you're
Yeah.
walking in the room? Are you here with me right now, or are
Yeah.
you like expecting me to say my lines and you're gonna say your lines, and then we're gonna get through this hour? Like,
Interesting. Interesting.
yeah, it gets there's
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
there's more tangible things that are like, the kids that make it, for the parents that are listening, the kids that make it best are the parents that really, really love them and are very engaged with them as humans and very hands off as dance. Like you make sure that the schedule is there, you make sure that the support
Mm.
is there, but then you get out of the way. After that happens, you talk to the dance
Yeah.
teachers behind the scenes. You don't talk about dance in a negative way in the car on the ride home. You don't know the other kids that well. You don't know the other parents enough
Yeah.
to criticize them. You don't like all of that energy once parents or even like the parents that are nervous for their kids because maybe it's too much independence. Like at a certain moment, the rubber is going to meet the road and you're going to need them to be able to walk in the room and speak for themselves. And you're going to
Jeez.
want that. And if you haven't created that, you can't fake it.
Put it on a
Man,
shirt.
that's
That was, I mean, I couldn't, yeah, that's fantastic.
it's real talk,
Fantastic.
man. We
Yeah.
have a
Yeah. Yeah.
kid, and this
Yeah.
is every year. Every year we have kids that are the best dancers in their class. Like, the
Yeah.
industry doesn't rank you, but in our minds, we're trying to figure out what college is right for you, right? So
Right.
we know she deserves to be at some of the most competitive colleges. And this goes for college kids too that are graduating college. Every year we have a kid that graduates college and we're mentoring them and we're like, are you going to be able to walk in the room? No. And after the dance part is over and
Jeez.
they want to meet you and they want to interview you to see if you're mature enough to go on tour or you're mature enough to live in New York City on your own or, whatever the moment is, are you going to be able to handle that
Yeah.
moment? And that's the difference. Mom can't speak for you at a certain point. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's wild. But yeah, that's the thing. If y'all can catch the first one, catch it, boy. But if it went over, watch it a couple
Yeah.
times,
Yeah. Yeah.
meditate on it, see if it can resonate with you. Because if it can, oh boy, it will change things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, we got to
Incredible.
do this more often.
Preston,
This
thank
is
you so
great.
much. Yeah, we gotta, I'm already like, the gears are turning, and I think we should definitely figure out scheduling for a little live stream reaction to some of these
Oh
university
yeah.
routines. But yeah, this was incredible. I think, I talk a lot about synergies and just kind of coincidences and things like that. And I think that, I think right off rip, there was like just a lot of synergy between the two of us. And I think it was very natural right away as
Hmm.
well. Um,
Oh yeah.
so yeah, definitely more of these to
Oh yeah.
come. But man, anybody listening, if you guys, I've been like I don't know if any of them have come. I'm not making that claim, but I throw you guys out a lot to people that I touch base with because I mean, it's just lot more kids looking at college than even a year
Yeah.
ago, and just looking at those routes and looking at like what else they can do. And so I think it's amazing that there's platforms like yours and services like yours out there. Um, so if anybody listening, like this is from the source. I like this is information that's like finger on the
Oh
pulse. Like
yeah.
this isn't your dance teacher who may or may not have a clue. Like this is somebody who's in it. So please soak it up. And yeah, I don't know. Any last words for anybody listening out
Trenches,
there?
man. This is, I think what I'm most inspired about by this, and even watching you, man. I've watched you for a while, and watched you for a while before I reached out and just just peep the scene a little bit. I think the dance industry is growing, and it's really cool to see people like us. I feel like, there's a village of people that aren't weirdos, that are, trying to be good humans, but also
Yeah,
just nerds about dance. We love it. I think, like, to these families, when you're in a world, when you're in a competition space, you hope you can find somebody like a Jason. When you're in the
mm,
collegiate space and you're trying to figure out these colleges, you hope you can find somebody like a TDA Prep. When you're looking for, these answers as a parent, that's what I imagine I'm going to be looking for whatever, hobbies my daughter wants to do. Stick with them,
yeah,
like, build relationships. Don't just use them, don't just check the boxes, but like actually spend time with them so they can get to know you, and show them who you are. Show us who you are. Like, we want to show you who we are. We're using our skills, we're using our gifts, we're using our love for our craft, just like your kids are dance nerds. We were dance nerds who just grew up, and we're trying to help, the next thing. So, like, we're just dance kids at heart.
yeah,
Like, I think
yeah,
getting to know that part of us, showing, that part of you, it helps all of us support the village that we're trying to build. And so, try to, when you find those people that are transactionary, use them as such. But when you find those people that are really, a lot deeper in what it is that they're doing, and are building something around that, build with them, contribute with them, and share your
yeah,
perspective, and please, because it helps us be better at what we do. And it creates more people like this. So yeah, I'm a big fan of what you've been doing and how you've been talking about it. And it's gangster to put the phone up and just talk to it, man. That's gangster energy right there. And then on top of that, like,
Uh,
you're not selling me on anything. Like, you're not trying to
mm,
get me to believe anything. You're just saying your opinion. And that's the thing that,
yeah,
like, dog, Cat Williams. I don't know. Did you see the Cat Williams Club Shay Shay podcast?
of
Come on.
course,
Come
of
on.
course.
Right? What I love about that is, whether it's true or not, it's his truth. It's his perspective on truth.
Yeah,
And what I like about that guy is the same thing I like about what I see from you on social is, you just say what it is, so that then I can decide how I feel about
yeah,
it, as opposed to,
mm,
this is my truth, but I'm also including things that are trying to get you on my side. Nah, it's just, this is my truth. Decide what you want. And
yeah,
man, that,
yeah,
as a person who works with kids, man, that's all a good teacher is somebody who just states what it is, and then gets out of the way and lets people figure it out. So, like, I'm pumped to be a
yeah.
part of it with you. Whatever we build after this, whatever you build, I'm going to support it. And I just appreciate the synergy and the energy, man. It's going to be good stuff to come.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And me to you as well. So thank you again for your time and hopping on. And yeah, definitely more to come.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, y'all.